The third misconception against Israel is the misconception of racism. Many people today will compare Israel to South Africa, that Israel is the new apartheid, that just as in South Africa that blacks were not given the same rights as whites, today in Israel Arabs are treated the same way. This again is a very big misnomer, and it's very important that we're able to answer this misconception. When you talk about Arabs living in Israel, you have to divide them into two categories. First, you have Israeli Arabs, and secondly, you have Palestinians. Israeli Arabs are those Arabs that in 1948, when Israel was formed, lived in Israel. Israel offered all of those Arabs to become Israeli citizens. The vast majority became citizens, and those people plus their descendants are Israeli citizens today. They have full rights as any Israeli citizen. They have the rights to be part of the democratic process. And in fact, today in the Israeli Knesset, there are 11 Israeli Arabs that sit in the Israeli Knesset, the Israeli parliament. There's an Israeli Arab that sits on the Israeli Supreme Court. In fact, today, the head of the border police in Israel, which is a very important position, obviously, is an Israeli Arab. So we see in all of these different facets of society, Israeli Arabs are integrated. They have access to education, access to the jury system, so on and so forth. Israeli Arabs have the highest level of rights and abilities to be part of a democratic system than any surrounding Arab country in the Middle East. When you look at Palestinians, it is true the situation is different. Palestinians do not have the same rights as Israeli Arabs. They do not have the same access to the democratic system, to the educational system. Why is that? The reason is because Palestinians are not Israeli citizens. Palestinians are those Arabs in 1967 that lived in the West Bank and Gaza when Israel took them over in 1967 in a defensive war when Israel was attacked. Israel never annexed those lands. Israel never made those lands an official part of Israel. Why? Because Israel has always been willing to make a peaceful negotiation with the Arabs in order to let them have those lands as their own state. So Israel has never incorporated those lands into Israel, and thus those people are not citizens of Israel. And in fact, we know that this is what the Palestinians want. This whole battle the Palestinians keep saying is in order to create their own state. They want their own country. They want their own democracy. So of course they shouldn't have the same rights that Israeli citizens have. It's like myself as an American, if I decided to go up to Canada for the next election. I went there on voting day and I said I wanted to vote. They said, you can't vote, you're not a Canadian citizen. So I would tell them, you're a bunch of racists. Of course, that's absurd. They're not racist. I'm not a Canadian citizen. The same thing. Palestinians are not Israeli citizens, so they do not have the same opportunities. But they want their own country where they can create their own democracy. It's also important to know as a side point that even though Palestinians are not Israeli citizens, they still are given many rights in Israel. They are still allowed to go to the Supreme Court of Israel in order to challenge different rulings that are put forth by Israel. Since 1967, when Israel took over the territories that Palestinians live in 1967 there was one university in the territories. Today there are 11, all built by Israeli money. So while it's true that the Palestinians do not have the same rights that Israeli citizens have, the fact is because they're not Israeli citizens. But still Israel, even though it does not need to, has tried in many different ways to help the Palestinian level of living.